Hi, this is Josh Melberg, and many people are looking at annuities, especially index fixed annuities, because they provide safety first with potential great gains. Now, the concept's wonderful. The concept is if the market goes up, you make money, but if the market crashes, you can't lose a dime, and any gains that you credit to your account becomes your gains. Now, there's a saying, there's the devil's in the details. Some of these terms are great, and some of these terms aren't so good. So I want to take some time and go through the different crediting strategies that these accounts have and what they look for and what you may want to consider. And I'll break it down to where it can be simple to take a look at. Now, first off, as a recap, what is an index fixed annuity? An index fixed annuity is also called a fixed indexed annuity. And what the insurance company does is they invest the monies into investment grade bond portfolio. That's where the money is actually placed. That bond interest, not the principal, just the yield, they'll invest the yield into the market. And by investing the yield into the market, we know that the market's going to go up and go down. That's a given. But they don't invest the principal into the market. They only take the interest of that and they invest it into options. They buy calls. So by investing only the interest into the market, if the market goes up, if there's gains, typically it's a year or 2 years out or whatever the time frame, they'll pull those gains out of the market and they will buy more bond. So any gains you get becomes your principal. If the market goes down, you don't lose anything, but you don't make anything either. If the market goes up, you get the gain. If the market goes down, you flatline. Now, people love this because over the last 10 years, that's what the market's been doing. It's up 1 year, down another. And over the last 10 years, the market's actually less than it was 10 years ago. And if you have market upside without the downside, this is a great strategy. Now, here's the negative. The negative is that you may not get all the gains. You may have to leave some of those gains behind. So imagine you go to a casino, and this is a special casino, okay? Playing blackjack. You put $10,000 of your hard-earned money, put that down, and all of a sudden you lose it. It's gone. You're not very happy. You're angry. You're starting to walk on out of the casino. Well, before you stop and leave the casino, the house stops you and says, I'll tell you what, here's your $10,000 back. Sounds too good to be true, correct? But you have to come back again the next day to play. Day two, you take your $10,000, you play it on blackjack, you play it on roulette, whatever gambling you like to do, and you hit a big jackpot. If you hit a big jackpot, you're not going to get all the jackpot. You have to leave part of that jackpot behind. And that's how that works. That's the disadvantage. You may not get all the gains. So it's important to understand the different ways they can limit your gains. Here are the three major ways these companies can limit your gains. And some companies say that you have a cap. A cap, keyword, is like a ceiling, meaning the most you can make in a year would be 8%. The market makes 20, you get 8. Some companies have a cap of 15%. Some companies have a cap of 5% in a year. You want to make sure if you have a cap, it could have a very high limit. It could have a very high option that it can make per year. Some companies don't have a cap at all. They say they have no limit to earnings. They have no cap, but they're going to charge a fee. Let's say they charge a fee of 2%. The market makes 20, meaning a major index such as the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, the Dow Euro. Market makes 20%, you get 18. But I'm going to change this word from fee to margin, because what that means is if the market loses 20%, they can't charge that fee. They can only charge that fee only if there's earnings. Okay? Now, some companies say, okay, you don't have a cap, we're not going to charge a fee, but you only get a percentage of the gains. You're only going to get 80% of the earnings. So if the market makes 20%, you get 16. The market loses, you don't lose a dime. Okay? So it's okay to have these, but you want to know what the terms are. If you have a cap, have a very high cap. It's okay to have a fee, but they only charge it only if there's earnings. Or a lot of mutual funds or variable annuities, they're going to charge you a fee whether you make money or you don't make money. That makes people unhappy. But some companies, they say they have all three. You have a fee, a cap, and a participation rate. So that's what you want to look for. Now, why would one company have a low cap and another company have no cap? Well, here's the reason behind it. Generally speaking, these accounts are going to range from 0 years to 20 years to maturity. Okay? Remember what the insurance company does. They put their money into investment-grade bonds and treasuries. They have to have dollar-for-dollar reserves. They have to be backed by reinsurers, so your money's secure. But if they buy a 14-year account, they're typically buying 14-year bonds to maturity. The longer term the bond, the higher yield you get. The higher yield that they have from the bond portfolio, the more money they can put in the market from the yield. Therefore, you may not have a cap or no limit to earnings. So if you go to a shorter term account, if you buy a 2-year account, you may have a 5% cap. The most you can make is 5% in a year. What I found is the sweet spot is between 7 and 14 years is typically where you're going to get the highest potential gains. Now, there are different crediting strategies that these companies have, and I'm going to give you the 2 basic ones that they have. Remember, these are always potentially a cap, a fee, or percentage, but there's crediting strategies of how they credit your gains. Now, with these index annuities, you get to choose major indexes such as S&P 500, NASDAQ. Unfortunately, we don't get to choose Google or Apple stock or Brazilian orange juice mutual fund futures. You have to stick with major indexes. Now, here's the first type of crediting strategy. One is called annual point-to-point. Annual point-to-point works like this. We know the market's going to go up and go down. This represents a year time. If the index starts at 1,000 and a year from now, let's say you're starting in sometime in October, and next October to October, it ends at 1,200, they take this point to this point. Any gains that you get becomes locked in. So in this particular case, it would be plus 20%. Now, this 20% could be subject to a fee. If it's subject to a fee, you'd get 18. If you had a cap of 8, then you'd only get 8. If you had a participation rate, you'd only get 16. Pretty simple. But if the market crashes year 2 and goes down from 1,200, so this is year 1 here, the market crashes year 2 and goes from 1,200 index down to 1,000, year 2, guess what? You flatline. You just don't make anything, but you don't lose anything. So this represents year 2, and then if you go year 3, if the market goes from year 3 from 1,000 to 1,200, well, if that were to happen, then you start from your base. You do not have to get above 1,200 to make money. This is called annual reset. That means they lock in gains every 1 year. So some companies say they're going to lock in gains every 1 year. Some companies say we're going to lock in your gains every 2 years. Some companies say we're going to lock in your gains every 5 years. You choose what's right for you. There's pros and cons with each one of them. Sometimes it's better to go 2 years than 1. Now, by locking in 1 year, you don't have to give above 1,200. So I'll give an example of that. We had clients go into these accounts a few years ago when the S&P 500 was over 1,500 index. And when the market crashed and went all the way back down to 700 range, and then went from 700 to 1,100, well, they made money. They did not have to get above 1,500 to make money again. And that's why it's annual reset, because all you need is zigzag. The market can do 3 things. The market can go zigzag sideways. You still get market upside without the downside. The market can go zigzag downwards. If that were to happen, you still get market upside without the downside. Or the market can go zigzag upwards, like it did in the 90s. If that were to happen, you may not get as much of the gains, but you will still participate in the gains. You may be here and the market's up here. So you can make more if you're in the market directly, but these really shine in a sideways market or even a downward market from that standpoint. All you need is up 1 year, down another. Now, this is point to point. The second type of strategy is going to be called monthly averaging. Monthly averaging works like this. You have an index, and we know that the market's going to go up and go down. This chart represents 1 year. let's say the S&P 500 starts at 1,000 index in the month of October. In September, it goes to 1,050. Sometime in April, the index hits 1,200. Sometime in August, it's back down to 1,000, and by next October comes around, it's down to 900. So what happened is the market went up and then came back down. With annual point to point, you would have made 0% for the year, but you wouldn't lose anything, but you just wouldn't make anything. With monthly averaging, what they do is they take every single month. They take 1,000 in October, 1,050 in September. They add up all the values of the monthly anniversaries. They add it up, they divide it by 12, and they take the average. So which one's better? Well, obviously, if the market goes straight up for the year, annual point-to-point might be the best. If the market goes up and comes back down for the year, monthly average is the best because it takes the average. So what's nice about this, for people that don't want to have one bad day that wipes out the gains and they want to take out the volatility, they will choose monthly average. Okay? Now, some companies say, you know what, we have annual point-to-point, but we're going to have a cap. And instead of having an annual cap of 8%, we're going to have a monthly cap. It's a cap per month of 2.5%. Meaning the most you can make in 1 month is 2.5% in 1 month. So the most you can make in a year is 2.5% times 12, which the most you can make in a year is 30% in a year. So let's take that example. If you have annual point-to-point with a monthly cap, then it would work like this. You're going to have winter months and you're going to have loser months. Let's say you start in the month of June, July, August, okay, September, and in the month of June, the market goes up by 2%. Therefore, they will add plus 2%. In July, if the market goes up by 3%, you have a cap of 2.5% for the month, so the most you can make is plus 2.5% in a month because you have a ceiling per month. In August, if the market goes down by 1%, that's a loser month, so we got to deduct 1%. In September, if the market's up by 2%, well, they will add plus 2%. At the end of the month, at the end of the year, from June to June, they'll take all the positive months, they'll take all the negative months, they will add them up. If it's a positive 13% for the year, once they credit those gains, those 13% for the year, that's now locked in. You can never give that back up, even if the market crashes. But if it's a negative 40% for the year, then you just don't lose a dime. You always keep your principal. What strategy is right for you? Well, it depends on the terms of the accounts. It's okay to have a high cap, or it's okay to have no limit to earnings. You just want to make sure. And what's nice about a lot of these accounts here is you're able to change strategies, or you can put some in annual point-to-point, you can put some in monthly averaging, you can put different participation rates, and you can change it every year. So if you think the markets can come up and rally and then come back down because taxes are going to go up, then you may want to choose monthly averaging. And that's the advantage of having flexibility and being able to choose some of these.